Hi everyone, Patrick here. Week 6, a non-teaching week, which is feels a little odd because there's a lot to get through, of course. Well done on getting assignment 1 finished. I want to release the first of sort of 1, 2, 3 little lectures. One might be bigger than the other, 2. I might release them today and tomorrow and the next day. So the first one is I'm going to talk straight through a series of slides Mike left me that's been used in the previous years. The second one will be a bit of adjusting that lecture to fit, so to speak, the group and the site. And the third one will be the discussion with Craig Allchin. Now, all of these will lead into next week's conference on Monday, which is looking just super exciting for me, I have to say, because there's people saying yes all over the place, which is great. I will release the speakers of that in the next few days in more detail, but state government, Indigenous thinkers, Bhakti from India, and I'm rather hoping to secure somebody from UNSW's Water Research Lab. Anyway, there'll be a real focus on water. It'll be a very full morning. So come ready for exercises, come ready for discussion. Let's get on with talking through assignment 2. At this stage, based on Mike's slide, but I will release another lecture or 2. There's lots of information around this. It would be easy to do it in person in class, but we've got full no class this week and a full class next week. So I think I'll just pop them up on the Moodle. Please try and get through them as much as you can, all of them. Okay, let me just share my screen. So, assignment 2 is very much about being open-ended, about exploring, and about blending ideas. They are the key sort of concepts around it. 2 core purposes of this studio: individually resolving a public domain area of the framework plan and advancing your skills in urban public design. This is of the studio, and progressing design and process understanding of your theoretical topic in preparation for grad studio. So we're always building along from assignment 1. Assignment 1, you've just finished, follow the rules, gaining that foundational knowledge. Assignment 2 is a version of forget the rules. These are Mike's titles, and it's a version of forget the rules. Now, that can I just say here, that doesn't mean forget the site. It just means forget. It's a somewhat light-hearted approach to this thematic exploration. Not light-hearted, but it's just trying to loosen up perhaps the rigidity, if anyone felt that, from having to follow guidelines in Project 1. It's about expanding possibilities and thinking independently. It's about being experimental, choosing novel combinations, and being open-ended. It moves us into that Project 3, which is Make the Rules, which is setting up your design research proposal. I am going to move through this pretty quickly. Project 3 is about settling on a more considered, personalised and targeted approach to graduating studio. It's more about being a reflective and projective, potentially provocative. Coalescence is a word that Mike's put in there. I think it's an opportunity for bigger ideas or more detailed ideas. I certainly think being provocative, opening the brief up, challenging possible accepted kind of thoughts and ideas about the site. And I think it's very much about having to come to grips with the urgent reality of the state of the world at the moment, quite frankly. Project 3, no script is generally what that's about. Now, Mike used this lovely image before, and it is a terrific one. So here we are, forget the rules. So you'll see that it's high on being experimental, the green line. It's pretty high on being independent, and it's low on being conventional. So feel free to explore, but again, keep being responsible to the site and to what you know. Project Forget the Rules, it's about being multidisciplinary. It's about this idea that a number of disciplines can work together, and it's an additive effect. Project is usually short-lived, and there is seldom any long-term change in the ways discipline participants view their own work. This comes from research, so it's an idea of being multidisciplinary and the benefits around that. Certainly, I feel like my whole working life has been about being multidisciplinary. So I think it's the way of working. It can be interesting, I suppose, to be in an office which is all landscape architects, but typically you're always having to engage with everything and everyone else. Multi, inter, transdisciplinary. It enables lifelong learning, helps individuals be more adaptable and responsive to changes. Its characteristic features include problem focus, evolving methodology, iterative reflective processes. So draw something up, think about it, redraw it, change it. And collaboration, that is a key method of contemporary working life. And they transcend disciplinary boundaries, certainly traditional ones. Do you find it hard to commit? Then this is the project for you. This project is not about resolving a particular design. It's about exploring possibilities. And it's about producing graphics that can suggest that. Here is a past students project, active transport plus radical design, plus Lego culture. Here's another one that was about sensuality and sexuality, exploring these and exploring them graphically and what that could begin to mean. Even, you know, when I look at that little image of the palm tree in the middle, I can begin to see an idea of wind movement. So I think part of this is also about holding on to the very site-specific qualities of your site. You know, I'm yet to hear anyone really talk with any seriousness about the history of that site and this infill layer over it. And I'm sure you went over that a little bit in Studio One. But it's a very interesting site. It's like a layer cake, and there's been a new slab put on it of infill. But what lies underneath? Here's another one, dancing mangroves, and sort of an idea that's equating the form of the human body to the branching form of mangroves. Flood brings beauty. And a view from Wabi Sabi art, or I was going to mention Wabi Sabi. Wabi Sabi, you know, that might be something you look at. Wabi Sabi has sort of given rise to something, the Japanese art technique of kintsugi, which is an idea of golden repair. I might mention that again in another little lecture this week. Again, precedent work, intensifying the edge, and here we have a gondola from Italy up on the Parramatta River. Sherelle Altona's beautiful explorative drawings from this project 2 years ago. Is that 2 or 3 years ago? She certainly moved this grad studio project towards a very interesting outcome that was largely off the edge of her site and into the water. Extrapolating the edge. So, you know, all of these are looking at edge types, edge value. That may be something you really look at. You know, things like edge conditions, things like topography. You might begin to look directly at topography. Here's still Sherelle's work. You know, we get a beautiful sense of history of the site there, over there on the left, and a real history of the site, not just the last 100 years or 150 years, but she's taken that back to 6,000 years ago, 11,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago. And we get a very nice, concise visual archive of that. And we must look at that. We must look at that longer history, what this site has been for so long, and has been a swampy lagoon / billabong, call it whatever you want, marshland of a much wider Cooks River region, which we have filled in with development over the last 200 years to the detriment of the river. That we will probably learn next Monday the poor health of the Cooks River. Now, what is our role in that? Decolonise. I think that's a terrific word, and we are all very much in the process of that. It's a long process. It's taking us decades and decades, and it will take us a lot longer. But so here's a project that was just trying to visually explore that concept and up in more detail as space comes into the picture. Explorative drawing, this idea of disintegration. So there's an idea and about trying to disintegrate a site and renewal, what that might mean, and bringing in ways of processes that we can begin to understand. Here we have like sand reclamation, something that happens every day around the world in tidal water edge conditions. Maybe it's about why employability. You know, what are the 5 predicted top skills for 2025? This information's a couple of years older now, but part of it is about critical thinking and analysis and creativity. And that's part of what this assignment is asking you to really push along. To do that, you've got to be comfortable with ambiguity, exploration, and tinkering. Now, I think from what I'm seeing, many of you are. So what I expect is for many of you to be very good at this project actually. So if it just means working in that in-between space of ambiguity, like what are you unsure about? That might be something to really explore. Are you unsure about how buildings meet the ground? Are you unsure about the river's edge? Are you unsure about the history of the site? Are you unsure about how to have a mood or a feeling around endemic plants? I think using endemic plants needs to become very much almost compulsory for all of you. And most of you are, certainly the work I'm going through, most of you are, not all, and I will keep advising that. Old school advice, decide where you want to be in 20 years and work towards it, the plan and implement model, and that's not what we're doing now. A lot of those sort of jobs in 20 years won't exist as everything's changing. So you've got to be able to test and learn, and that's what this assignment 2 is trying to give some focus to. Don't commit to anything in the future. Just look at the available options now and choose those that will give you the most promising range of options. The test and learn model. Does it sound familiar? This is the design process. The plan and implement model versus the test and learn model. These are ways of thinking. We know that landscape architecture is a broad field, and the mighty Charles Waltham, as he broaches landscape urbanism, is sort of a king of it. The landscape architect is the urbanist of our age, and it's very much a generalist discipline. And the breadth of training predicts breadth of transfer ability. And are we suited to be the urbanist of our age? Hell yeah, that's what I say. Now, I am going to release a discussion I had with architect, friend, and urban planner Craig Allchin that I had with him last week, and I recorded. Secretly, it's already on your Teams stream. I don't know if any of you found it. It's in the Teams general, I think, but I'll pop it into the Moodle. I don't mind you looking at it earlier, but I do want to deconstruct it a little bit. It's quite interesting what terms he uses, and I think landscape architects would use different terms. And I very much want to promote the idea that this is a landscape-led project, and you need to be strong about that. You need to lead with that. Is this the era for the generalist specialist? I would say yes. Cities are very complex. The more context in which something is learned, the more the learner creates abstract models, and the less they rely on any particular example. Learners become better at applying their knowledge to a situation they've never seen before, which is the essence of creativity. The more challenges you can tackle, if you can learn that as a method. It is tricky. Sometimes you do need to operate within a firm set of rules and deliver it by, Friday at 5 p.m. And at other times, you need to be good at working outside rules where ideas are challenged and turned over in creative ways. Even thinking through some of the words, sorry about my throat, some of the words of Craig Allchin, they are challenging to me, honestly, and I'm just trying to reconcile them with myself and with how we should all speak about it. But I also find them very beautifully provocative. Like, I love them. I'm really looking forward to bringing them up next Monday within a panel discussion. Engineers do infrastructure and ecologists do ecology, but we know different to that. Landscape architects do both. So we've got to be thinking about that. Sometimes we just need to loosen up, and Mike's examples here of all these fantastic musicians is a bit of a catalyst to that. What do all these famous musicians have in common? None of them could read sheet music, and they're all great experimenters, innovators, and tinkerers. Edwin Southern invented the method for detecting specific DNA molecules, and the idea came from his childhood experience with cyclostyling, which is an old document copying device and a rather tricky word to say. So one idea may connect to something else, and you never quite know that until you get there. So I think that's through the very famous Florence Nightingale, with all her good-heartedness, was a pioneer in using statistical methods to quantify the effect of different nursing practices. Dense statistical data was presented in an easy-to-read graphic format, particularly pie charts and circular histograms. So, like, she really took that kind of maths and stats way on and brought it into the field of care and nursing. Brilliant, changed the world. Landscape architects are considered to have invented the adventure playground. Just consider that. Landscape architect Carl Theodor Sorensen from Denmark is considered to have invented the adventure playground. The focus was on the location of playgrounds in the city and on independent play and self-education, building on the pedagogical philosophies of Froebel, the very famous, for me, Rudolf Steiner and Maria Montessori. We have 2 children, my partner and I, and they go to a Rudolf Steiner school. They're 15 and 12, and it's just been very wonderful watching the the pedagogic kind of learning capacity through this idea of play, tree climbing, learning biodynamics, having children, really sort of mix up cow poo and mix it up with what do they mix it up with? They mix it up with kind of formulas they've made from stewing flowers or seaweed, and they paint it on trees, and it helps the trees. And they look at the world of nutrition into the plant life, and it's much more akin to the idea of reciprocity, which is an idea that Robin Bell Kimmerer speaks to in the book that I put on the Moodle, and having a relationship with the land around us. Here it's still coming through a very human adventure lens. In fluid professional networks, individuals move easily among teams, crossing organisational and disciplinary boundaries to find new collaborators. Why we need more teamwork practice. To take, which sadly this is still an individual. From right here on in, it's their individual assignments. So we will have to work how we can navigate that a little within them. To take ideas that are conventions in one area and bring that into the new area where they suddenly seem as invention. This will be good thinking for next Monday's roundtable discussion about water. Human creativity is an import and export business of ideas, and the highest impact research is grounded in conventional combinations of prior work, yet simultaneously features an intrusion of unusual combinations. Here we have Anuruddha Mathur, the architect, landscape architect, cartographer, and large-scale water resilience expert. Just incredible drawings, actually. A little hard to understand fully. Well worth looking up, but lots of layers of thinking within the drawing, lots of fluidity within the drawing, lots of history. Beautiful layout here. This is really one to learn from, people. So worthwhile going into that website and looking through the graphics of this. They are masters of thinking about water. Santiago de Calatrava, the great bridge designer, sculptor and painter. It's an engineer, and you can see that sort of workings of the human body into bridge form. Our very own Richard Weller, graduated from UNSW, he's had a fine career, ending up over in the US, but now he's back in Australia. But his projects have ranged from that sort of fine arts, garden design stuff, which we see at a large public scale at our Canberra Australian Museum, with the, what's it called? The, can't think what the name of that is. Garden of Ideas, so what is? Structure planning in the middle, and his global ecologies work, which we see down here, where he's making global connections, both north and south and east and west. I'm particularly interested in the one he makes from southeastern Australia, all the way up through Indonesia, across, follow my mouse if you can see it, across to the top of Africa. Landscape is infrastructure. We have various people talking into that. The Renaissance person or woman, which is always about broad and deep knowledge and curiosity and experience. Well, that's probably what we all should be. And Michelangelo was a great example of that, a painter, sculptor, poet, an architect, and an engineer. could have been, and a landscape architect, really. I mean, some very beautiful work. He used the test and learn method, not only from sculpting David, but working on the very, very fabulous Piazza del Campandaglio, Capitol Hill in Rome, which there is a lovely longer piece of history about that. But essentially, he's tying these disparate buildings in this three-sided courtyard together with this oval. And he's making it all seem, by hook or by crook, as if it all has fitted like that together. But it hadn't. These were a whole series of more dilapidated buildings that weren't so pulled together spatially, and he pulled them together beautifully, particularly using topography and using the Baroque and grand manner tricks of axes and symmetry. And it's a wonderful example of that. It's been used and used and used again all around the world in modern city making. But where is biodiversity in that? So I think there's always a modern sort of question you need to be asking, where is biodiversity in this? We know we are just plundering the biodiversity of the world around us. David Attenborough films like his witness statement, which came out about 5 years ago, are very clear and simply understood by that. How do we bring that, the biodiversity world, into urban planning world? Where does landscape actually stop and finish? Forget disciplinary boundaries. I mean, this is a fairly urban design icon, the Capitol Hill. The highest impact research is grounded in conventional combinations of prior work, yet simultaneously features an intrusion of unusual combinations. Can someone name your topic and one design technique of this topic? Can someone else with a different topic name your topic and one design technique? If we were in class, we could sort of have a go at this. How might these two be combined in some ways? That would be a fun class activity if we were together. Here's some past work. This one's about ghost lines by mapping historical shoreline and a previous tram line. This student found them overlapping in an interesting way and started to explore that. You could begin to think of that down a Circular Quay and up George Street, where there is that mapping of the original shoreline and the end of the tank stream into the boundaries of the city, the new built boundaries of the city. Here we have a bit more sort of music, so to speak, brought into this idea of mangroves. Adagio assai, nice and slow. Sound of the tides. I mean, certainly sound is a beautiful thing to bring in with anything moving in water. I mean, the Cooks River there, my short experience of it is there's bird life, there's pelicans. It's rather amazing. Here is another one, which was up at the Newcastle site, which is, to put it mildly and truly, it's the largest coal exporting port in the world. So coal is definitely part of its DNA, I guess, as a piece of site identity. And this student was looking at the relationship with it and the similarity between coal and our feelings. Fabulous. And just starting to really explore that a bit. Material and form, atmospheres. Here we have these inspiring people bringing different thinking together. Now, this project begins on Padlet. You'll be working through it. Lyndon and I will be giving you feedback. As soon as you can get something up there, we'll be giving you feedback onto Padlet. So get into it. Comment on each other's work if you can. I think you can on this Padlet setting. I have found the setting is different to what it's been in other years. Certainly when Lyndon and I are commenting, you need to go into each student's thing and go to the bottom of their text box and press on the little bubble. I think it'll open it all up. It should be rewarding for curiosity and process over outcomes. Do challenging ideas, but do them in a respectful way. Now, the respectful way, what does that mean? It means with the site involved. So what we don't want is, I don't want a shopping mall. Let's put it that way. I don't want a sort of shopping mall palette of random forms and colour. It's all going to come together. We want to see site. We want to see site. We know there's mangroves there. We know it's got a thick kind of 4-metre infill slab of new soil on top of the clay plain. We know it's level, bang on level pretty much, kind of sloping in to that basin in the middle for level, racetrack level, but it didn't used to be. So that's an immediate topographic question, even just rippling through that at a gentle level, or really digging it all up at a more extreme level. What are the ways that you could begin to respect the Cook River on this site and use possible methods like messing around with topography? This project will reward curiosity and process over outcomes. It'll reward independence and inquisitiveness, design acumen, and concept communication. So please keep clear, even within Padlet, like how you're communicating it. We want to see personalised combinations. There should be no two projects that have the same combination. The more different from your theory topic, the better, usually. It's not just ecology. So we don't want you to just combine it with biophilic or ecology, these kind of broad brush, sort of acceptable statements. Sustainability, green technology, they're just broad and nothing. You know, like I'm just trying to think, you know, some ways, things you might get more specific about. Maybe, you know, it's the language of a river. You know, how does a river move? Some poetic words around river. Or the paintings of someone. Certainly I like the work of Julie Irving, who has a very good way of blurring boundaries. IRVING. There's the Japanese art technique of kintsugi, of golden repair. The wabi-sabi I mentioned before. Even something like the writings of Kate Raworth, the economist, who talks about balance and thrive. Maybe it's something like the habitat needs of thinking like a pelican, or thinking like a crab, or thinking like salt marsh. The growth habit of salt marsh. What does salt marsh need? Maybe it's something more like the moire effect, which is a visual patterning that one gets when you put one grid over another grid, and it shimmers. It's like silk. Or maybe it's some other spatial device like parallax, which is, you can look it up, but it's where kind of you get converging, maybe being on an escalator, and as you move along it, different images appear spatially in front of you, where things line up and they suddenly look like something. Like you could explore a spatial form. You could explore how rainbows work and the wonder of that. There's certainly some good literature out about that. So be thoughtful, be creative in what you sort of choose to blend this with. It could be seaweed manufacturing. The work of Pia Winberg down in Huskisson is extraordinary. There's a lot going on in the world in contemporary ideas. It could be about anyway, and look for something that's interesting. All work displayed on Padlet. Forget about that presentation in week 7. We're not doing that. Presentation format, so we're not having a presentation. It will all be submitted. But we're looking for those 3 finished explorative drawings. That's the end of what I'm going to call my slides. And I will look out for another one coming from me very soon in the world of recorded lectures. Bye.